When I looked for light, then darkness came. Job 30:26. Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I am your host, Phil Gonzalez, and this week, hey everybody, when was the last time you gave yourself a good long think about theodicy? When did you really just stop and say to yourself, hey man, what's up with theodicy? Not the Odyssey. Theodicy. It's a philosophical, theological questioning of the nature of, well, how evil can exist in a world in which there is a benevolent God overlooking everything. It's kind of mental gymnastics that religious people go through to justify believing in a benevolent, omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful deity, but also evil existing in the world. And by evil, I mean both kinds of evil. Natural evil and like moral evil. Like from hurricane wiping out the millions of homes, doing millions of dollars of damage, to murderers. Like both kinds of evil, all kinds of evil. Why does it exist? How could it possibly exist? Why would a benevolent God, a caring God, a God who swears that even the fall of the tiniest sparrow hurts his feelings, allow bad things to happen to good people? As well, we'll get to that. So that's called theodicy. It's that question. It's that school of thought. And it's so, I mean, without trying to be that guy, without wanting to be that guy, it's nothing I ever worry about. Like, I don't worry about that. It's just, it's one of the few things I have going on in my life. I don't ever have to worry about that. I'm like, I don't know why it's your fault. You're the one who believes in the thing that's supposed to be able to do anything. I don't, so I don't have to worry about that. Bad things happen because bad things happen. That's just the way it is. And people do crap things to other people because there's just a lot of crappy people in the world. A lot of good people in the world, too. Be more like the Berenstain Bears, everyone. But there's a lot of crappy people in the world, too, doing crappy things. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it always has been. And all we can really do is just strive to make the world a place with fewer crappy people. And that's the end of my philosophy. That's the end of how I think about it. But if you exist in a reality in which you believe there's a benevolent deity watching out for everybody and who deeply cares and also has the power to do anything they want whenever they want, it can be a bit tricky. There was a bestseller in the 80s. When bad things happen to good people, why do bad things happen to? Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote it. It was a big bestseller. What was it called? Why do bad things happen to great people? Why do good things not happen to me? I can't remember what it's called. When bad things happen to good people. I just remember it was by Harold Kushner. I remember the name of the author, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, by Rabbi Harold Kushner, who only died like a year ago. I did not know that until I was looking it up. I read this book back in college when I was going through it, and it really helped. It was back when I was still a person who believed in a all-powerful deity. I read When Bad Things Happen to Good People, and I found it a great comfort. It gave me a new way to sort of view the workings of the world. And it's a decent book on theodicy. Like how do you justify both ideas, both concepts in your head? How do you do the mental gymnastics required to believe in one thing while other things are happening that would seem to contradict it? I know that there are people who posit that, if there is an all-powerful deity, if there is an omniscient deity who is incapable of intervening in human life, then there's just then that's a useless deity. There's no reason to deal with it. If there is an omniscient deity, an all-powerful deity who is capable of intervening in human life and chooses not to, then that deity is worthless, like just is evil, like doesn't actually care and is something to be feared, but certainly not worshipped. Or it just doesn't exist. And I believe in a world that functions and exists as if there were not a deity. And in some ways, in many ways, that's what Harold Kushner is asking you to do. He in his best-selling book, posits a God who doesn't necessarily have the ability to intervene, who set everything in motion and then just is like, then here's the world I made for you. Some people call it, I think, the celestial clockmaker or the celestial watchmaker, the idea of a God who fashions reality like a watchmaker makes a watch, and then winds it up and sets it going, and then doesn't intervene anymore. Like, that's it. Like, once the machinery is all running, then the deity just cracks their fingers and is like, that's it. That's all I had to do. On the seventh day I rest. And a lot of people feel fine with that philosophy. That philosophy's never worked for me personally. It doesn't seem, again, it's just there may as well just not be anything. I don't understand why there may as well not be anything if that's the case. But I was going to say we're not here to talk about me, but in a way we are, because I'm the one doing this. But why are we talking about theodicy? Why are we talking about when bad things happen to good people? Why are we talking about this at all? Well, I know for a fact why we are. There's no I think about it. The reason we are talking about such a thing, such an uncomfortable subject, the reason I'm forcing you to listen to me talk about this is because this week's book is the much talked about but never covered on the show, The Berenstain Bears, Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days? And you may be saying, well, have we talked about this on the show? Have we mentioned this? Yes, we have. Years ago, I talked about this book because I was in Mike Berenstain's studio with Brad and Jeremy, and Mike showed us the proofs or the whatever you call them for this book, and not necessarily the whole book, but for the cover of this book. This was quite a story. So this was back in 2017. We're visiting Mike. It's July 11th. It was my birthday. We're visiting Mike at his studio, and he was like, "Let me show you something. Let me illustrate a point I want to make to you by showing you a literal illustration." And he pulls out a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper are two pictures. One is the book cover you see before you today, and the other is a variant on that book cover. And he said, when I design covers for books, when I design things in books, sometimes I know what the publisher is going to tell me before I submit it, but I do it anyway. And for an upcoming book I have called Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days? I have a cover that I really liked and that I really want this book to have. But I know for a fact that the publisher will not allow it. So I've designed two covers because I know they're going to make me change it anyway. But I just had to get this one out of my system and submit it just in case, I guess, just in case they go for it. But he's like, but I know exactly what they're going to say when they see it. And Brad Mariska took a picture of the pictures that Mike held up for us. And so credit to Brad for this photo. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it. If not, you just go to YouTube and see it. Mike showed us both pictures. And as you can see, the top photo is of a Berenstain Bears book cover. I'm just going to enlarge this a little bit. Berenstain Bears book cover for Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days? And you see brother and sister wheeling their bikes, which have flat tires, looking over their shoulders, kind of in fear. And there's black clouds up top, and the title, Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days? Right up there. The word "bad" is written in spooky lightning letters. There's dark storm clouds. There's lightning flashing. The sky is dark. There's a harsh light on the bears' faces. They look frightened. There's a family of rabbits down in the corner huddling against a rock from the storm. And you just see brother and sister weathering sort of a scary storm as they try to push their bikes home from school. And then, of course, on the bottom is a variation on the cover we ended up with, which is no storm. The cubs are in the woods. Their bikes still have pop tires, but instead the cubs are like, what? Looking at their tires, and there's tacks on the ground behind them. The bunnies are still there, but they're not cowering anymore. They're more interested. The word "bad" is no longer written in scary letters. It's written in multicolored letters, which in the eventual version of the cover is just regular lettering. And he said he knew when he submitted the original idea for the cover, even though he loved it, he knew they were going to reject it because they would say It's too scary. It's too scary for little kids. Parents are going to see the lightning. They're going to see the thunderclouds. They're going to see the rain, and they're not going to let their kids buy it. They're not going to buy it for their kids because it's a scary cover. And he's like, even though I think, give me a break. Like kids, this is not too scary for kids. He knows how the publishing world works, and so he designed the cover that obviously they went ahead and went with. And even then, they didn't quite go ahead with it. He ended up changing a few things. The colors are slightly different, and the title has been simplified. I don't know if it's just that they didn't want to go with his hand lettering for the title, or in lieu of using just more generic lettering that they can reproduce in different languages. I don't know how that works, but they ended up going with why do good bears have bad days? I'm getting it confused because the book is when bad things happen to good people, and this is why do good bears have bad days. So the good and the bad are flipped. That's why I'm having trouble with it. By Mike Berenstain. So that's what we're discussing today. And yes, it does address theodicy. That's what the point of this book is. And we get to see the bears' friends being absolute garbage people in this book to their friends because sometimes your friends are absolute garbage people. Now I'm going to make my face really tiny. This is a book with a lot of 2-page spreads, so I'm going to make my face really tiny down in the corner because we're going to explore this book. So let's take a look at why do good bears have bad days? I can't get it, my friends. I will never get this book correctly. So we start with a quote from the book of Job, which is the ultimate book in the Bible of theodicy. It's the book that is basically addresses the question, why do bad things happen to good guys? If you don't know the story of Job, it's the story of a guy who's like the ultimate good guy. He loves God. He praises God. No matter what happens, he loves God. And Satan says to God, look, and this is, of course, Satan as the adversary, not Satan as like the Antichrist. This is Satan as whose job it is to like test God's and question God. Like, never mind. It's Old Testament stuff, or, it's the older concept of Satan. And he says to God, look, this Job guy, he praises it, but he's successful. He's a successful guy with a great family, a great business. He's doing great. Of course he's going to praise you. But if bad things happen to Job, he would reject you. He would curse you and reject you. And God's like, it ain't going to happen. And so Satan's like, I'll make a bet. We'll make bad things happen to Job. I'll prove to you that he will eventually reject you, God. And God's like, okay, but you can't kill him. That's like the one thing, which obviously. So Satan like kills all of Job's family and his livestock. He ruins his business. He makes him sick, gives him sores and boils. This happens like numerous times. And like, his friends keep begging him to reject God, to abandon God, but Job won't. He even like yells at God at one point and like asks him why he's doing it. And God's basically like, who are you to question me? And that's kind of the answer it gives. It's like, you don't have a right to know. Suck it up, buttercup. And that's kind of the book of Job. It never really sat that well with me, but that's the book of Job. And it does ask the question, why are these bad things happening to me? I've done nothing but be good to you all my life. So in the Berenstain Bears universe, who are our Jobs? Our little Jobs in this book are the cubs, of course. It's a beautiful day and brother and sister bear go out on their bikes. They're going to go take a long bike ride. Honey Bear can't go with them, so she stays at home, and brother and sister ride out past the honey tree, past Farmer Ben's farm, into the deep dark woods. They're going to go fishing because Brother Bear wants to catch an old granddaddy bass, which is funny because like we've seen them make friends with fish before. So we are firmly we know they eat fish. This is the first time I think Brother is like, I want to go kill an animal. Like this is our first, like Brother is setting out. His goal today is to eliminate a fish, to remove its life, to take it off the cosmic roll call. This fish will be no more. He will cut open, gut, and eat this fish. He will scale it, he will fillet it, he will devour it with his mouth, process it, take the nutrients he can, expel the rest of this living creature as waste. That is what Brother is going to do. You would think that's why the bad things happen. Hey, what did the fish ever do? We're not bringing that up. That's not going to be the question because, went backwards. He never gets a chance. He snags his fishing line on a branch. When he tries to pull it off, he slips and falls into the pond. He's wringing out his shirt. Trying to get his fishing rod out when sister gets a catch. But in trying to reel in her fishing rod snaps in half. And she's like, look, we had the day all planned out. And just like that, and she snaps her fingers. We get a great image of Sister Bear snapping her fingers. It's over. And I like it when cartoonists have to draw a character snapping their fingers. Because, like, do you draw it mid-snap, pre-snap, or post-snap? Snoopy was always drawn sort of making a finger gun. Like, he would snap his fingers, and he would go, like, I can't do it. It was like he would end up pointing, and I sometimes try. It's hard to do. Try to do that when I'm snapping my fingers, but Snoopy was really good at it. But in order to show it, they would just show him pointing, and there'd be like bright like action lines over it, and you'd be like, okay, Snoopy just snapped his fingers. Mike is choosing to draw Sister Bear like mid-snap, like about to snap. These are 4-fingered characters, by the way, so it's hard to see if she's using what would be her middle finger or her index finger, her ring finger, I guess. But she's snapping her fingers. Just something I've never seen before is a Berenstain bear snapping its fingers. So she's like, well, great, this didn't work out. Let's go home. So they're pedaling through the woods, and their tires explode. Their tires explode. They look, and there's nails sticking out of their tires. We never come back to this, but there's a box of what looks to be roofing nails, or like roofing tacks, like sharp tacks, on the side of the road. It's been tipped over, and there's just tacks across it. Like almost like it looks deliberate, is what I'm saying. It looks like someone deliberately put. It looks like there's a murderer in these woods, that there's a murderer who is trying to stop people on their bikes from getting out. I don't know. But Brother's like, what lousy luck. First we lose our fishing rods, now this. And Sister says, it's not fair. We don't deserve it. So they start pushing their deflated bikes home. And that's when we get the cover of the book. And it is basically the picture that's on the cover of the book. It's brother and sister pushing their popped tires. They got nails sticking out of them. There's thunderstorm clouds up ahead. We see the spooky old tree, or the honey tree. We see, in this one, there's a barn. We see a bird. There's no rabbits, but it's essentially the same picture. It's a cool picture. Both the cover and this version are cool images of brother and sister. You just don't get to see the cubs looking honestly frightened that often. And the lighting that Mike has given, the shading and the lighting is gorgeous. I really love the pictures of brother and sister looking scared. Brother says, uh-oh, thunder. They try to move faster, but the clouds gather, the storm erupts, drenches them, and then goes away. So they're cold, they're wet, they're miserable, they're angry, they're frustrated, their bikes are popped. They've been pushing pushing a bike with flattened tires is no easy task, so they're probably tired. Then their friends show up. It's Cousin Fred, it's Lizzie and Susie. And they're like, what's going on? You guys look soaked. And they're like, this day is not working out. And they lay out their litany of complaints. Fishing rods, pop tires, drenched by the storm. This is my favorite 2-page spread, probably in the history of the Berenstain Bears. We get Lizzie saying, it makes you wonder why good bears have bad days. Then we get Susie. Now, Susie, if you remember, was introduced into the new religious line in the early 2000s. She was the new kid in school. She was a bit of a nerdlinger. Except for the pigtails, they've really downplayed her more like jarring physical characteristics. Now she's mostly just a bear with glasses. This is our first indication that she's also like a bit of a pain in the butt as far as religion goes, because she says, my grandmother always says it's because God is punishing you for something. By the way, Susie's grandmother must be a real piece of work. If that's what your grandmother is saying to you, Susie, stop listening to your grandmother. But she's like, my grandmother says it's because God is punishing you. And Sister's like, whoa. We haven't done anything wrong. Why would God punish us? And Fred says, well, have you ever done anything wrong in your life? And Sister's like, yeah, sometimes. And then Susie's like, well, my grandmother's right. God's punishing you for something. See you later. And they all just like wave goodbye. That's it. That's the interaction with their friends. Children don't know anything, by the way. And when I was in elementary school, I had a concert. Must have been junior high. It was junior high. I had a school concert in band, and it must have been when I was in 7th grade. It was my first year in band. And it was the first concert of the year. We had to dress nice. And I didn't have dress shoes. I just didn't own a pair of dress shoes. We never went anywhere, so I didn't have dress shoes. So I had to borrow a pair of my dad's dress shoes, and we had to stuff the toes so they would fit. Very cute, very like sitcom-y thing for a kid to have to do. And I was standing in front of a kid who was also in a band, and I turned to him and I was like, I'm wearing my dad's shoes. I had to stuff them so they'll fit because I don't have my own dress shoes. And he said, you don't have dress shoes? Well, what do you wear to church? And I said, we don't go to church. To which he responded, oh, then you're going to hell. And I guess what I'm saying is kids don't know anything about theology. They don't know anything. Kids just want to be right, and they want to be right, and they want to hurt your feelings. That's my take on kids and religion. Kids think it's cool when bad things are going to happen to you from on high. So it's like my grandmother says, God must be punishing you for something. See you later. They wave and leave. So brother and sister go home. They're wet. They get out of their wet clothes. They get hot chocolate from their parents. Mike has drawn brother drinking the hot chocolate. Mike is doing a bang up job with this book. I really like the way he's drawn it, but he's drawn brother holding his mug of hot chocolate in a way that doesn't make any sense. It looks like brother is deliberately pouring chocolate down his chest because it's tipped so that the top rim of the mug is at brother's chin, and he's just sticking his tongue out like but he's not holding the cup anywhere near his mouth, and he's holding it like he doesn't seem to be able to have his hands around. He's holding it two-handed, but with his hands like hugging the top of the mug. It doesn't make any sense. Take a look at the YouTube. It doesn't make any sense how he's holding this mug. But that's not the point. The point is brother and sister are very upset about what their friends said to them. And Mama and Papa just laugh it off. And ladies and gentlemen, if your kids ever come home with stupid things their friends have told them, yes, your first job is to laugh uproariously at the stupid things your kids' friends said. Because your kids' friends will fill their head with the most ridiculous garbage of all time. That's the way they are. And because kids are kids, they will only believe their friends. They will always believe what their friends have told them. That's just the way it is, no matter how ridiculous. And you know what? You can't argue it. You can't argue it. They will believe their friends regardless of the evidence, but it is your job to point out how dumb their friends are, because they're kids and kids are dumb. That's why they're a kid. And you grow up and you're still dumb, but now you make money. So in any case, Mama and Papa laugh uproariously at the stupidity of Cousin Fred and all them. And Mama literally says, what utter nonsense. And now here's Mama's theodicy. She says, God loves you and watches over you. Even when you make mistakes, he forgives you if you're sorry and try to do better. And brother says, wait. If God is watching over us, then why did he let all these bad things happen to us? Right? So Papa says, that's something folks have been asking for a long time. I think the best way to look at it is that God watches over us. But he does, and I actually like Papa saying this. He says, God watches over us, but he doesn't change the way the world works for our comfort. He's not going to cancel a thunderstorm just because we happen to be outdoors. Now, this is kind of Papa's gentle way of saying, God's not going to intervene just because someone opens fire with an AK-47 at a nightclub. He's not going to cancel a mass shooting just because people happen to be in the way. That is literally what Papa's saying, by the way. Now, I know that's conflating two different types of evil, natural disasters with human evil, but the sentiment's the same. He's not gonna get in the way because he doesn't change the way the world works for our comfort. Now, Rabbi Harold Kushner first started thinking about these concepts when his son died of is it progeria? Is that what it's called? Or is that the hair problem? The hair thing? I think it's hold on, I'm gonna look it up. His son died at the age of 16 from, yes, I was right, progeria. At the age of 14 from progeria. And that's the genetic disease disorder where you age quickly. It's kind of like Jack, except not Jack at all. You don't turn into Robin Williams. Your body ages rapidly and then you die very young. And he started thinking about this, like, why did this have to happen? It's one of those things that a lot of people who are religious and are believers think about, as well they might. Because it's funny though. I mean, even when I was a kid and nothing bad had ever happened to me, I still thought about these things. Like, I thought about these things a lot. I was like, something's not lining up. Like, I didn't have any answers, but I was like, something's not lining up. This doesn't make much sense. But so, expanding on Papa's thunderstorm analogy, he doesn't stop anyone from getting sick if that's the way things are tending. Like, it's just not going to happen. And he doesn't even add in petitionary prayer. He doesn't even say God usually doesn't change the way the world works. He doesn't allow for the miracle. He just says God doesn't change the way the world works just for our comfort. And it's so by saying that, he is enveloping all kinds of experience into for our comfort. He is including us getting wet from a thunderstorm in with, us grieving the loss of a loved one. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, because in a way, that's all our comfort. Like, he is saying God did not intend for this world to be a comfortable place to live. He gave us free will. And he gave us the ability to make choices, but that includes us suffering at the choices of others, and us suffering at the vagaries of nature and the way the world works and physics operate, but you can get hurt by them because you're going to fall off a mountain if you trip and stumble at the lip of a cliff, and you're going to be injured if you're in the way of a bullet. And that's not evil so much as physics and biology and happenstance. So what Papa is saying is that there is an intelligent God who loves you very much, but he's not going to get in the way of a bullet for you. He's not. It's just, he's not going to. He's not going to do it for our comfort. And so Sister asks a very pertinent question. Then what do we mean when we say God watches over us? What is that? Then if he's not doing anything, what's the point? And Mama says, I believe God watches over that which he created deep inside us, the special part of us that belongs to him and has faith in him. And Brother's like, this doesn't make any sense. And Papa says, look, in church, you've heard Preacher Brown talk about our souls, right? And I believe this is the first time in the Bears books we've ever addressed the concept of the soul. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time the soul has come up. And Brother and Sister are like, okay, we know about the soul. And he's like, well, our souls are the part of us that God protects and saves from danger. Nothing in the exterior, no storms or accidents can hurt our souls if we have faith. Whoops, I went back. I went back accidentally, and then it was, so we had Mama saying, what utter nonsense? And I was like, whoa, I don't remember Mama contradicting Papa on this. What utter nonsense, Papa? No. Brother and Sister think about it, and they're like, I don't really understand, but it does make me feel better knowing that God's watching over them deep inside. And this is where Mike is intelligent about this. He says, it did make them feel better knowing God was watching over them deep down inside. And the hot chocolate made them feel better too, but not as much as the big warm hugs from Mama and Papa. And here at the end of the book, Mike does something that I think Mike is great at. Mike is really good at this. First of all, I think Mike Berenstain is a very good, yes, he stumbles and falls sometimes, as we all do, but I think Mike Berenstain is a very good writer of theology for children. Not because I think he answers every question, but because he gives kids complex food for thought, as he did very well, I think, in the and I think he has more coming out, the Gifts of the Spirit series. But he does this very well. This is not just from a theological standpoint, but from a literary standpoint. What he does is he says, this is the final page of the book. Brother and Sister thought it over, period. It was a little hard to understand, period. But it did make them feel better knowing God was watching over them deep down inside, period. And the hot chocolate made them feel better too, but not as much as the big warm hugs from Mama and Papa, period. What Mike has done in this final page, better than I think many of the books about this subject do, is he says, this is a question that is mind-boggling. It's hard to think about. Think about it, but we know it's hard to think about. You're not going to come down with a truly satisfying answer. I hope, however, that the sort of wishy-washy response that even the greatest philosophers and theologians have come up with over the years makes you at least feel a little bit better on the inside. We don't know why, but just know that God is up there and he does care. But at the end of the day, it's really the creature comforts that are going to be the ultimate warmth. And sometimes you just got to get a hug from your parents. Like deep down inside, sometimes you just got to get a hug. Like that's it. We don't know. Have a hug. Have a hug. Maybe this guy up here can't help you out and won't help you out. Believe in it or not, but it's not going to intervene. Maybe thinking about that makes you feel distressed. Maybe it feels weird. Maybe you feel good knowing that at least there's something up there loving you. But at the end of the day, it's the warmth of a cup of cocoa, and most importantly, the warmth of a hug from the people who love you that's going to make the most difference. There are actually people out there who love you and care about you, and a community that loves you and cares about you. And from a Mike Berenstain perspective, that seems to be the ultimate good in the world. That ultimately your community is what it will embrace you. Your family, your community, your loved one. Mike believes in God. Mike believes in a loving God. But Mike also believes in a God that is not going to step down. There's a reason the Berenstains have healthcare charities. God isn't intervening and saving the lives of sick children. But doctors are, and medical professionals are, and sometimes you got to have money to pay for that medicine because, sometimes you got to form a nonprofit to pay doctors to go into areas where kids need help to help extend lives like that, because you can petition God as much as you want, but it's, as we've seen in Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days, the mama says he's not, or Papa says God's not going to intervene to make your life comfortable. He's not going to stop that thunderstorm. He's a celestial watchmaker, and he set things in motion, and then he just, I guess, sits up there biting his nails, like worrying about you. Why do good bears have bad days? Why do bad things happen to good people? That's the way the world works, I guess, and it sucks. It sucks. But you know what? Good things happen to good people too. And I've seen people in my life who have experienced massive hardships. And I've seen those same people experience beautiful, beautiful things in this world. Wonderful things, and find the beauty in the world, even in the face of nightmarish difficulties. The world is hard, and the world is lovely, and the world is ugly, and the world is beautiful. And there is evil in this world. There are people who do terrible things, but there are people who do gracious, wonderful things all the time. It's the whole Mr. Rogers look for the helpers thing. They're out there. Like, people are out there trying to help, trying to do good. Sometimes in trying to do good, they do bad. You can't, sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you just can't. Why do good bears have bad days? Why does it rain on your parade? I don't know. I mean, I do know, because that's the way the cycle. There's a lot of randomness and, craziness and things just sometimes things just happen. Sometimes bad people do things. Sometimes good people do bad things. Sometimes people are bad, and sometimes I don't know. Sometimes they put tacks in the middle of the road so your bike tires pop. And you never find out who did that, but you gotta pay to fix your tires. It stinks. But what do I think of this book? Why Do Good Bears Have Bad Days? I think this book is great. I really like this book. I'm not a religious person, but I think that if my child asked me that question, I might give them an answer something like this. If I was raising a religious child and they asked me that religious question, am I raising a religious child? I don't know. Am I? She's having a bat mitzvah. Am I raising a religious child? Maybe. I don't know. I've never really talked with her rabbi, so I don't know. But maybe at the bat mitzvah, I'll ask that, hey, I'll raise my hand. Why do good bears have bad days? Maybe I'll do this presentation at her, I'll show her up at her bat mitzvah. My whole family will be here. That's right. The Gonzaleses are coming to Minnesota. I don't know why this doesn't need to be talked about on a worldwide podcast. Why do good bears have bad days? Sometimes when I do these religious books, my religious listeners will write in, and sometimes they'll chastise me for for being an atheist, and daring to talk about these things. But, I've literally talked to the author about these things. He knows my stance. He knows who I am. I think Mike likes me. And I do believe this is a serious conversation, because it doesn't matter if I think what I think. It doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is that people do believe in these things, and they do have these questions. And it's good that there is a man who is trying to answer them for children. And I think in 2 pages, he does a pretty good job at answering that question. I really wish the book had ended with their friends getting their butts handed to them. That would have been nice, just because what a jerk thing to say. Don't tell your friends they did something to anger an almighty God, because that doesn't answer the question of why bad people have great things happen to them, Cousin Fred. The world is filled with happy billionaires, and those people aren't doing great things. I'm just going to sit here and stare. I would just sit here and stare, except that the software I use to tighten up my episodes is going to delete all the long pauses I make unless I tell it not to, and I'm too lazy to do that. So I'm not just going to sit here and stare. But I do think that good bears have bad days sometimes, because that's just the way the world works, kids. Sorry to be the one to break it to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of the Deep in Bear Country Berenstain Bearcast. Go to YouTube, visit my YouTube page. It's Raffish Ripoff, I think. It's Philip Gonzalez. Find my YouTube page. Just search for my show, Deep in Bear Country. Find me, watch me. Here's something you can do. If you are watching me, subscribe. Just click. I'm going to be one of those YouTubers that says subscribe. Why? Just so you can always make sure and get these shows. And it helps more people see these shows. Maybe there's people out there who are interested and want to see me talk about this kind of thing. I don't know. But just know this. When bad things happen to you, Wasn't me. Wasn't my fault. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Listen to my other shows. Watch my other shows. They'll be back at some point, at some time, I guess. And I'll see you all next time on a stormy, schwarmy day. I don't know what that means. Deep in bear country.